Hey guys, it's Andrew with Discipulus. Today we're going to be installing Raspbian onto the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. This is the same method that you would use to install it onto the Raspberry Pi 3B or any of the other Raspberry Pi devices. So sit back, relax, and follow along if you got a Raspberry Pi and have always been wondering how to set it up. Alright, so what you're going to need for this is you're going to need, of course, your Raspberry Pi. You're going to need a micro SD card. If you're setting up Wi-Fi, there are some other steps to it, and I can go over that in another video if you're interested. For right now, we're going to use a network adapter. We're just going to plug a network cable directly into the Raspberry Pi and into our router. And we're going to be enabling SSH on boot. So what we're going to be doing is, first thing you need to do is plug your micro SD card in. And as you can see right here, I have a micro SD card plugged in, and it looks like it's not formatted. So what you're going to need is to plug that in, and you're going to have to head over to the internet and go to etcher.io. If you're running Windows 64-bit, you can download the 64-bit portable version. There's a 32-bit, there's Mac, and if you're running Linux, there's also Linux images as well. So we're going to download the 64-bit portable edition. Once that finishes downloading, you're going to head over to raspberrypi.org, and you're going to go to the download section. Like I said, we're going to be installing Raspbian today, so we're going to click on Raspbian because it's the official image for Raspberry Pi. We're not going to be using any kind of desktop or anything. It's all going to be via command line and SSH. So what you're going to do is just download the Raspbian Stretch Lite. Once both of those are done downloading, you're going to head over to your Downloads folder, and you're going to right-click and extract all on the zip file. I already have it, so it's probably going to, it's going to ask me to do that, so we're just going to skip it, and it's going to open up and it's going to tell you it's a disk image. Once that's done, you can close out of that, go back to your download folder, and you can open up Etcher. Once Etcher opens up, you're going to hit select image, and you're going to browse to your download folder, open up the 2018-06 or whatever release you have for Raspbian Stretch Lite. Click on the Raspbian Stretch Lite image and hit open. If it doesn't automatically detect your SD card, you can open this up and you can select the right one. On this case, mine selected automatically. And then you're going to click flash and let it go. Once it comes up with this, you're going to hit yes. The reason this comes up is because this has to be ran as an administrator, and Windows just wants to make sure that you know what's going on and you want to allow it to run as an administrator. there we go. Now that we can see it was successful, we're going to close out of Etcher, and we're going to go to our computer. I've done this a couple times, and sometimes this boot drive shows up, sometimes it doesn't. If the boot drive doesn't show up, all you have to do is simply eject the micro SD card, put it back in, and you'll get this boot drive. So what we want to do before we move this SD card into the Raspberry Pi is we're going to open up this boot drive, and we're going to right click and click New Text Document. And all we're going to do is just label this SSH. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow SSH to be enabled on boot. That way we don't have to worry about hooking up a monitor or anything to this Raspberry Pi. We'll be able to get into it remotely when it boots up. What we're going to have to do is click on View, click File Name Extensions, and find that SSH. Click on it one more time, and we're just going to delete the .txt at the end of it. It's going to ask if we want it. Are we sure we want to change it? Yes. And it's going to change it to a straight file. Once that's done, we're just going to eject it and simply put it in our Raspberry Pi. And we're going to boot up our Raspberry Pi, and we're going to walk through how to get into it. Alright, now that I've got my Raspberry Pi booting up, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the internet, and we're going to go to Google, and we are going to type in IP scanner, and we're going to download Advanced IP Scanner by going to the website and clicking on Free Download. What this is going to allow us to do is figure out what the IP address of our Raspberry Pi is once it finishes booting. Once that's done downloading, you're going to go to your Downloads folder, and you're going to open up Advanced IP Scanner, click Run, and click OK. Let you speak a different language, feel free to change it. From here, we're going to click on Run because we're just going to run the portable version. We're not going to worry about installing it. If you need to come back and run it again, you can always run the portable version from here. Click on Run, give it a few minutes, and it's going to boot up. From here, make sure that this matches your home network, whatever your network is. For example, mine's 192.168.89.1 through 254. A lot of home systems by default are either .0.1 or .1.1, so that's the most common ones I've seen. Once you make sure that's there, you're just going to hit Scan. And what we're looking for is we're looking for this Raspberry Pi right here. This is another Raspberry Pi I have on mine, so we're going to ignore that. Yours is going to say Raspberry Pi. I don't think it'll say the .lan. If it does, then cool. But what we need is this IP address right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the Windows key, and we're going to type CMD, command prompt, and hit Enter. From here, we're going to type SSH pi at 192.168.89.216. The reason why we have to do that is because we have to type, what this means is SSH with this username right here at this IP address. So Pi is the default user that gets installed, and we're going to use this IP address. Once that's done, we're going to hit Enter. For some reason, every time I try doing this, the first time I boot the Raspberry Pi, it comes up and says connection timed out. So the way I found to fix this is just go ahead and power cycle your Raspberry Pi if this happens. If not, just continue on. Alright, now I've rebooted my Raspberry Pi. They boot up fairly quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the up arrow, and I'm going to try it one more time. And when it comes up with this, it's just saying that it doesn't know who this is. Are you sure you want to connect to it? And this is its fingerprint. So we're going to type yes and hit Enter. And the password, the default password that comes on these Raspberry Pis is going to be Raspberry, R-A-S-P-B-E-R-R-Y. It'll be down below. Enter. Alright, and there we go. Now we are in our Raspberry Pi. So what we're going to do is we are going to set up a couple of things. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the Raspberry Pi is most up to date and has all the new updates. So we're going to type sudo, which means super user do. Because the regular user doesn't have any permissions when you set it up. So we're going to type sudo space apt-get space update. And what this is going to do is it's going to go and update all the applications on the Raspberry Pi. So hit Enter. This is going to take a little bit, so we're going to let it run. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to hit the up arrow, and instead of saying update, we're going to type upgrade. And we're going to hit Enter one more time, and what this is going to do is it's going to apply all those updates that it got. So if you see right here, we're going to get 22 upgrades. So we're going to type yes and hit enter, and this one's going to take just a little while. While this is running, I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Feel free to leave me a comment down below what you thought I could do better in the video, what you liked, what you didn't like. Feel free to subscribe to the channel so you can see updates as I post new videos and new content. And of course, if you ever feel like you want to help out the channel, I do have a link down in the description of where you can go and donate to the channel. That way I can upgrade all my equipment and just produce better content for everybody. Alright, now that everything's done and updated, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and change a couple settings. So they actually have a configuration for this, so we're going to type sudo space RASPI dash, and if you hit the tab key it should autocomplete. There we go, and we're going to hit enter. First thing we're going to do is change the user password, so we're going to hit OK and change our password. Enter it one more time. And it says it changed successfully. We're going to hit OK. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to go down to advanced options, and we are going to expand the file system so that the file system can use the entire SD card. Alright, and it's telling us that we're going to have to reboot, which is fine. The next thing we're going to do is change the host name. If you have a couple of Raspberry Pis running, you want to make sure that they're easily identifiable. So we're going to change the host name and hit OK. For example, this one is my Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, so I'm just going to call it Pi Plus because I have a Raspberry Pi 3B and a 3B Plus, and we're going to hit OK. And that should be about all we need to do right now, so we're going to go to finish. When you get down to the bottom, you're going to have to hit the right arrow and hit finish. Would you like to reboot? Yes. We're going to let this thing take a couple minutes to reboot. Alright, it should be booted back up now, so we're going to hit the up arrow. But instead of doing SSH Pi, or actually we're going to do SSH Pi again. We're going to hit enter. And what it's going to do is we're going to type in our new password. Once that's done, we're in. The next thing we're going to do is change that Pi user, because if you leave that default user and somebody tries to attack your Pi or tries to get into your Pi, they're going to know what the default user is. So we want to remove that for security reasons. So the way we do that is we're going to go sudo space add user space the name. So I'm going to type in Discipulus, hit enter, and we're going to type a new password. Enter one more time, and then we're just going to hit enter to go through all these defaults. And it says, is the information correct? We're going to type Y, enter. And the last thing we need to do is we need to give this new user the same permissions that Pi has. So what we're going to do is we're going to do sudo vsudo. And what this does is it's going to add the user to the sudo group so they can run commands. So we're going to go down here to right below where it says root, and we're going to hit enter. And we're going to type our user. And we're going to hit space, and we're going to copy everything from the root. So we're going to hit cop equals all colon all space all. And then the way you get out of this is you hold down the control key and you hit X, let go of the control key and hit Y, and then hit enter. The way we're going to test this is we're going to hit log out. And we're going to hit the up arrow, but instead of using Pi, we're going to use the left arrow to go back here, and we're going to type our username. and hit enter. And we're going to type our new password for our new user. And what that's going to do is it's going to log you in with that user. And you can tell what user's logged in by going down here and looking right before the name. All right. So the way we're going to test our permissions is we're going to go back into the sudo vsudo. It's going to give us a warning banner, and we're going to type our password. Hit enter, and there we go. So our permissions are correct. The last thing we want to do is you hit Control X to get out of that. Last thing we want to do is remove that Pi user so nobody can log in with that. And the way we do that is we do sudo del user space Pi. Enter. And it's going to remove it. And that's pretty much it for today's tutorial. Stay tuned for more. I plan on uploading a couple more tutorials. I have quite a few of these single board computers that I'm going to be doing different setups and how to do stuff. So stick around. If you have anything specific you want to know about setting up on the Raspberry Pi or some of the other boards that I have, which I'll go into a little more later, please leave me a comment below, and feel free to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you liked what I had to offer. Thanks, guys.